Hey everybody, it's Professor Champy. I wanted to talk today about this literary analysis essay. I wanted to answer some of your questions that you submitted for Journal 5, and I want to give some advice on getting started with writing this essay, on working on it. Also, want to talk a little bit about doing research. So I'm just hoping that this will help us work on our drafts and get started with this essay. First of all, this is a literary analysis essay, like we started talking about in class before we had to move online. I know I messed up, but I think I wrote poetry essay for Journal 5 originally. I did change that, and I apologize. That was mixed up on my part. This is the literary analysis essay. So if you remember back some of our last classes before we went online, for instance, the class where we were reading that essay about Pokemon that we talked about and we argued about a lot in class, which was fun. That essay is an example of what we're doing, right? We are reading the story Independence Day. Everyone needs to read that story. If you haven't read that story, go do it immediately. Independence Day by Sefi Atta up there on Canvas. That's the story that we're writing about. You have to write about that story. You have to have read that story to even be able to start this essay. So go and read that if you haven't done so. So we're looking at that story and we're trying to make an argument about what messages we think the story is sending. If you look at the literary analysis assignment sheet, which is at the top of our Canvas course, I have some suggested topics on there for you. I do want to take a look at that assignment sheet in this video, but I would start with that. So if you're wondering how to get started with this essay, number one, read the story. Number two, read through that assignment sheet and take a look at the suggested topics that I have up there. So let's take a look at this assignment sheet now. I have 4 suggested topics for you. And again, these are just suggested. If there's something else that you're really interested in writing about, we can definitely work with that. Get in touch and we'll talk about it. But these are kind of the themes that stick out to me the most in the story. So, regardless of which one you're writing about, what we're going to be doing is making an argument here. You're trying to convince the audience of what you think the story is saying on these topics that's clearly interested in. If we just read the story, we can see that there's a lot of things about gender, there's a lot of things about globalization, immigration, protesting. These topics come up again and again. So once we see that these topics keep coming up in the story, the question becomes, well, what is the story trying to tell us about these topics? In terms of trying to figure out what the messages are, or just to get you started, you should go back and take a look at the notes that I provided and the video that I provided. I think there's notes on gender, there's notes on globalization, there's also some outside videos I have on globalization. There's notes on immigration, and there's a video on protesting. So read those notes, watch that video, and that should get you started in terms of how we can begin to think about what the story is trying to show us on these topics. One other thing here is that I know I have these written out as questions. I think I had it that way on the narrative essay assignment sheet too. You don't want to just answer these questions. It shouldn't. Your essay needs to have one unified argument. You need to have a thesis, right, that's driving your essay. You don't want to kind of just go through paragraph by paragraph and respond to these questions as if it's like a short answer thing. So I think these questions, by answering them, I think you can get to a thesis, but you need to make sure that your essay is making one argument. So again, to get started with this essay, the first thing you want to do is choose one of these topics. Then you want to try to come up with a thesis that will say what you think the story is trying to show us about the topic that you've chosen. And then you would want to think about which scenes from the story back up what you're saying, which quotes and things that happen in the story would be evidence for the argument that you're making. And if we look now to the second page of the assignment sheet, I just wanted to look at some of the other requirements here. So unlike our last essay, I am requiring some research for this. I know research is difficult. I know that it's hard to do. Maybe you haven't done it before, but we're just going to try to start to get used to it here. So it says on here, I'm looking for 2 outside sources, at least one a journal or a book. So I posted some links on the Canvas page for today. I believe it says research info links. So you should click on that, and I have some links there to different websites that will help you do the research or do the citations. I know you guys hate this. I'll try to help you as much as I can. So, first of all, when you're doing research, you have 2 main ways of doing it. You have the databases that the school provides. You can click that link on the sheet that I posted. That'll take you to the databases. Here's something very important about the databases. I'll try to give you this in writing too. But here are two databases that I would try to use, and I would write these down because there's a lot of databases on there. The two that I would recommend are JSTOR and ProQuest. Actually, I'll give you a third. The third one is EBSCO. So JSTOR, ProQuest, EBSCO are the three databases that I think are the most useful and should be the only ones that you need for this course. So that's one of your sources. I'm looking to either be from those databases, or I also have up there the catalog for the books that the library has. They have some online offerings for books, so if you select online there, you can look and see if the library at the school has anything that would be helpful. So using those, it's just like using any search engine. You just type in, whatever you want to know about. So for instance, your topic, if you're writing on globalization or immigration or gender, you can look up just some stuff about those things. You can try to get some articles that are just about the immigration system or about gender and sexism in society, things like that. In addition to the actual research itself, you also need to cite these things. So that means you have to do two different things. One, you have to have in-text citations, and check out the info on that, the link that I posted. In-text citations go right in the paragraph, right in the body of your essay after you have a quote. So right when you end the quote, you have like parentheses, you give me the last name, you give me the page number, close parentheses. I'll try to post some examples of this, but you want to keep that in mind. And the last thing you need is a works cited page. It's to be a separate page at the end of your essay. It says works cited at the top, and you have all your citations listed there. And I'll give you more information on how to make those, and you can check out the links that I posted. The last thing I want to talk about with the requirements are due dates. So I am looking for some kind of rough draft submitted by today, Monday, the 6th. As long as you get them posted before class Wednesday, I should still be able to read them and give you some comments, but I would like them today just so I have enough time to read them. So again, just like last time, you don't have to be totally done. It doesn't have to be 4 full pages or anything like that. As long as you can give me maybe a page, maybe a couple of paragraphs about what you want to write about, what your argument is, which topic you're using, and what are some scenes from the story that you think are going to help you to make your argument. So as long as you get something like that posted for today, I can give you some good feedback. I am going to try to do something where classmates are going to give you some feedback later, but just get me something posted like that so I can give you my ideas on where you're going with it. One other thing I want to talk about today is using quotes in your essay. So like I said, quotes from the story, things that happen in the story, are going to be your main evidence here. Also, the outside sources are going to be some evidence, but really the main part of it is going to be the things that happen in the story, the direct quotes that you use. So two things that are really important wherever we're using quotes. One is that before the quote, you want to set it up. You want to introduce the quote. I know like the most basic way of doing this is say, the author states or Cefiata writes, and then comma, and then lead into the quote. That's one way to do it. That's an easy way to do it. Other things that are important, though, you want to give us whatever context that we need to understand the quote. So if the quote is a piece of dialogue, if someone's saying it to someone else, you might want to tell us who's saying it, which character. So you might want to start off a quote by saying, just like Mrs. Dorego says to her husband, and then, you would give us the dialogue that she has there. You just want to make sure that the reader understands what's happening in the quote and that they get what you want them to get from it. So you want to start off by introducing it, giving us any context, letting us know who's saying it, something like that. And then after the quote, you want to explain it. You want to connect each quote that you use to your argument. You want to explain to the reader, here's why the quote that I just gave you is actually evidence of my thesis. So each quote that you use, you're going to introduce it, give us the context so we understand it, and then after the quote, you're going to explain how that relates to your argument and why the quote that you just showed up backs up your argument. This is the way that you're going to convince the reader that you're right. Some people say, when I start doing literary analysis, maybe some people in our class were saying, well, it's all subjective, right? Anyone can see whatever they want in a piece of art. And the way that I would argue against that, and the reason that I think that that's incorrect, is because there is evidence to these arguments. And the evidence is the quotes. It's the things that happen in the story, and later on we'll talk about the outside sources. But for right now, think about the quotes, the things that happen in the story as your evidence, and the way to prove your argument about the message that the story is sending. So I just want to recap because most of the questions that I got were about just starting the essay or what I was asking for or what I want you to write in the essay. So just to recap on that stuff. First, obviously, read the story Independence Day by Sefi Atta. Then look through the topics that I have on that assignment sheet, or maybe have your own, but I would start with those and see if you like any of those or you think you could write a lot about any of those. You want to go through those topics, try to pick one that you think there's the most to say about or you like the best, and then from there you want to try to come up with an argument. Good ways to think about starting your thesis are you want to use words like the story shows us that, or the story tries to tell readers. If you're framing it that way, it'll be more arguable, right? What does the story think about immigration? What does it think about gender? What does it want the reader to take away from the story? What does it want the reader to be thinking about these things once you're done reading the story? So think about it in those terms. Try to get an argument going. Again, read my notes, watch my other video, and I think that'll get you started off on the right foot. And then, of course, get me a rough draft submitted, and I'll give you more specific feedback and more advice about how to go forward. I would also like to see some more people submit that Journal 5, even if you haven't done so yet. I signed it on Friday. It's Journal 5 homework under Friday's date on Canvas. And I just want, as many questions as I can get from you guys about this essay. I know it's confusing. I know this stuff's weird. I know you might not have done an essay like this before. I know this online format makes it difficult. But please send me questions. Not only is it going to help you with the essay, but it was also a homework grade. So get those homework points, and it'll help you get some more points on this essay too. All right, well, I think that's all the advice that I have for you for now. So keep those questions coming. Send me an email. I'll talk to you all soon.